don't take too long doing it. But anyway, I should have been more together, huh? Anyway, I'll just keep talking about Prabhupada and find it in 1 or 2 seconds. But, okay. So Prabhupada, you all know, I shared a little bit of my story that when I became a devotee, I was about 18 years old and my mother sent me a Bhagavad Gita at the University of Chicago. I was a student at the University of Chicago. I took a year's leave of absence. I got married. I got pregnant. I had a child. My mother sent me a Bhagavad Gita. I was working as a secretary at the Chicago... Oh, good. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. I was working as a secretary at the Chicago Urban League at the time, like 19 years old. And my mother sent me a Bhagavad Gita, and she was in Cleveland, I was in Chicago. And when I read that Bhagavad Gita, this is very interesting, because I always loved to read. I could read a book day or night. But when I read Bhagavad Gita, it was not like any other book that I had ever read. It was like Prabhupada, the author, was reading that book inside my heart. It was a very unusual feeling. But when I finished it, when I was at work, I would take it to work, and instead of going to lunch, I'd be reading Bhagavad Gita, and my co-workers would say, "What are you reading? What novel are you reading? You know, why is it so interesting?" And so when I finished reading Bhagavad Gita, I just knew that Prabhupada was my spiritual master, Krishna was God, and I needed to be with him. So I told my husband at the time that I wanted to surrender, and not fully really appreciate what that meant, to surrender. And I thought that my mother had said chant 3 rounds a day. And so we started chanting 3 rounds a day, and I had another friend that was living with me. She started chanting 3 rounds a day. My first husband, he was chanting 3 rounds a day. And we do our little yoga session, chanting 3 rounds a day. And eventually, in about a few weeks, I decided to leave and come with my mother in Cleveland, who had a little circle of students. She was somewhat of a yoga teacher, and she brought these students into Krishna Consciousness. My brother, my oldest brother, had seen the devotees doing Sankirtan. This is the importance of Sankirtan. We got to do Sankirtan. We have to get out in those streets and put these books and literature in people's hands. You never know where it might end and what devotee it's going to call. And so my brother got a back to Godhead, my oldest brother, but he hid it. Because he understood my mother's nature. He knew that my mother was a spiritual seeker, and if she read this magazine, she was going to go off into one of these other strange, crazy religions, right? But somehow Krishna put it on his heart, and one day he just brought that magazine out, and that was it. My mother became lock, stock, and barrel of Prabhupada Nuga. She gave up all her furniture. That was you all have to appreciate, this is in 1970, 71. And here's this African-American woman with a Christian background joining this Hare Krishna cult. It just was very, very unusual, to say the least. And my family, very strong Christian people, ministers and evangelists and, Bible people from morning to night. Some of my family would go to church every day. And so they were like, "What are you doing? Isn't Lord Jesus Christ good enough for you? Why are you getting in this crazy religion?" But my mother, just having somehow, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, she had the faith in Prabhupada from the very beginning. It's what saved her life, and mine too, and Kamagiri's too. And so she, went to the temple, and I think the first temple president was Sri Govinda and Sri Lekha, and then there was a series of others, and then it was Bhatua Gopal. And that devotee gave my family such a hard time. Oh, he was just such a, woo! Don't even want to go back to those memories. Because everything we tried to do, he said we couldn't do it. My mother was so ecstatic about Krishna Consciousness that she cut all of my brother's hair into sikas, and she gave all of us spiritual names and everything. That was the kind of person she was, all or nothing, you know what I'm saying? So he said, you can't cut your boys' hairs into sika until they're initiated. You can't have spiritual names. What are you doing, ladies? You just have to, So, it caused a problem. But we wrote Prabhupada. We wrote Prabhupada in those names. And Prabhupada answered my mother back in those names. Such a gentleman, such a classy person. Classy. And he understood her heart. That, you know, even in our ignorant way, he understood her sincerity. And so he encouraged us. And a couple times we were Prabhupada. He was in India. And it would take months for these letters to be answered. There was no email and text and all that, you know. So then it got so bad, the climate between us and the devotees in the temple, that one day we went to the temple and they called the police and threw us out and just did all kinds of crazy stuff. My mother got arrested. And when my mother got arrested, why did they want to do that? Because she sang the Nimshringa prayers from morning to night until the jailers were begging for her to get out. And they wanted her to sign a paper saying that if she got out, she would press charges. And my mother said, I didn't sign papers to get in, therefore I am not signing papers to get out. And they didn't know what to do. And she kept singing, Tavakara Kama Lavare Nakam Abuta Shringa. You know, they felt that power of Lord Nimshringa on their necks. So even the judge called and he called me and said, can you do something with your mother? And so somehow they let her out. And my mother never signed. Maybe somebody else signed for it, but she didn't sign. But after that, we knew that, you know, this little fledgling devotion that we were trying to cultivate it, we needed to be around some other devotees. So my mother said, let's just leave here and go find some temple or center that we can worship with in peace. And so we called my first husband, and he said, I'll drive you wherever you want to go. Because at that time, I could drive, Mother Boomer could drive. So y'all got to imagine this scene now. This old beat up. What? Oh, yeah, I was pregnant. Yeah, I was pregnant with my second child. And I actually didn't know how far pregnant I was, because at that time I was so enamored with Prabhupada. I didn't go to the doctor. I didn't get any checkups. Krishna was the medicine and the doctor, and I wouldn't recommend that for everybody. But anyway, it worked in that case because of Prabhupada. So we left in this old beat up black station wagon. My mother, myself, my first husband, and my youngest daughter, who is Radharani now, but she was Angela at the time, and she was 2. He didn't come until later. And then my 4 younger brothers. And it was hot, and it was in the summer. And we just got on the highway, and my mother would pray, Krishna, what direction to go in. This is a true story. And she would go down this highway, and then that highway. And somehow we just had that kind of faith that the Lord would guide us. So we ended up in Dallas, Texas. And you all know how far Dallas, Texas is from Cleveland, Ohio. It is a 24-hour ride if in good weather, you know, if you don't stop. So there was a temple there. We did find that out, and we went to the temple, and the temple president's name was Stoka Krishna. And he talked to us, and he said, you're from Cleveland, blah, blah, blah. And so he sneaked and called Batu Gopal. And Batu Gopal said, don't let him in, they're troublemakers. Imagine a pregnant woman, almost about to have a baby any day. And little children, and my mother, of course, my mother was a formidable kind of devotee, being troublemakers. So anyway, my mother said, but Prabhu, we don't have anywhere else to go. We don't know anybody here. We have very little money. We're devotees trying to practice this Krishna consciousness. How can you just put us out like that? He said, okay. You can stay here one night, but tomorrow you got to go because Prabhupada will be here. We said, Prabhupada! We were so happy because we didn't know where Prabhupada. We thought he was in India. There was no, there's a God. Krishna is real because he put all those pieces together like that. So the next day, Prabhupada came and they said, Prabhupada, there's this black woman from Cleveland. She's here with our children. Wasn't really our children either. And he said, tell her to come here. Because Prabhupada, being the devotee that he was, he understood. And my mother sat in his room for 6 hours while he took care of business and different things. And they talked a little. And the next day, Prabhupada's secretary told my mother at the water fountain that Prabhupada is going to do initiations tomorrow. And my mother said, we want to be initiated. And so he went and Prabhupada said, ask her how many. Look at the love. Ask her how many. Who recommended us? And so my mother, and by this time my mother had called my stepfather and said, you better get down here quick. Prabhupada is here. So he got on a bus and got there. So my mother said, Prabhupada, would you kindly initiate Ruchan and myself and my daughter and 2 sons? And Prabhupada said yes. And then the next day was Radhastami. To see all the mercy. And Prabhupada initiated us, and he named my stepfather Ruchan. He named my mother Bhumata. He named me Krsnanandini, and my 2 brothers Asutosh and Subhanu. And he gave us permission to open a temple wherever we went. And one of the highlights for me was one day as we were coming in the temple room, just being around Prabhupada was just such an extraordinary experience, and you didn't really know quite how to act on what emotions to have, but it was always this overwhelming feeling of love and acceptance and just mercy. And so one day I bowed down. Prabhupada, when he would come in, he would bow down, and somehow when I looked up, Prabhupada's head was next to mine. Now I always felt that he was blessing the baby in the womb, you know. And so Prabhupada initiated us and then installed the beautiful deities of Radha Kalachandji the same day. So what a historical, you know, fact. Who's seen Radha Kalachandji? Aren't they just so gorgeous? And so anyway, we left a couple of days after that, and we went to Nashville, Tennessee. My 2 brothers stayed at the Gurukula. There was the first Hare Krishna school in the movement, and they stayed there. And myself, my mother, stepdad, 2 younger brothers, and my first husband, he had left by this time. Because he said, well, I don't know why you are joining this movement with all these prejudiced people, and it's kind of weird. I don't know why you're doing it. I can't handle it. So he left and went back to Chicago. But my stepfather drove us to Nashville, and we got initiated September 12th. I had the baby September 14th. And so my brother wrote me, Asatoshi said, Krsnanadini, Prabhupada, everybody's asking Prabhupada to name their baby. Why don't you write him and ask him to name your baby? So I did, and I didn't get a response for 3 or 4 months later. And so we were just calling her baby girl Dasi, Krishna Dasi. We were just trying to hold out for that response. And Prabhupada wrote back, and that letter today is one of my most precious connections to Prabhupada. He said, my dear Krsnanandini Devi Dasi, please accept my blessings. Now you are my initiated disciple. That's like he claimed me forever. No matter what anybody else says or who rejects me, I was claimed by Srila Prabhupada. He said, now you are my initiated disciple. And I must instruct you to chant 16 rounds always, to associate as much as possible with the devotees, and to raise your children firmly in Krishna consciousness. And he said, this will be the success of your life. And so I accepted that mercy from Prabhupada like that as the success of my life. And we all have that mercy. We are all Prabhupadas. We all have Prabhupada's blessings. Prabhupada is the Jagat Guru for the next 10,000 years. So claim your blessing, claim your inheritance from Prabhupada, because he is making it so nicely available. And don't let your own nonsense and anybody else's nonsense stop you from claiming your inheritance as a divine, eternal servant of the Lord, who deserves, or maybe not deserves, but who has the right to eternally play with Krishna. That is a gift from Prabhupada. Don't let anybody stop you from that gift. Chant Hare Krishna. Serve the devotees. Try to forget who should do what and who didn't do what. Just think about, what am I doing for Krishna? What am I doing for Prabhupada? Because in the ultimate issue, that is all that matters. That is all. Krishna is not going to let you say, well, this devotee and that devotee and that. No. It's not going to matter. What did you do? And so I'm going to end. Yes. What?
Oh, why are those decorations not down?
Oh, do y'all want to hear this?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we'll make that. Thank you. It is a story. And I tell you, even. Yes. Oh, the baby's name. So when Prabhupada wrote back, he did write the baby's name. He said, for now, you can name her Bhakti Gaur Devi Dasi. Yeah, Bhakta. And we did name her on her birth certificate. Her name is Bhakta Gaur Devi Dasi, because that's the name that Prabhupada gave her, although we call her Bhakti. And he said when she is older, we will initiate her. Because I had asked Prabhupada to name her and initiate it. You know? Well, those were the times. Ask for the mercy, you know. And the guru is so kind. So I often remind Prabhupada lately. I said, Prabhupada, she's older now. So anyway, we got to Nashville, and again, you know, so much was on faith. Like when I think about it today, I know some of these moves I just probably wouldn't make. I mean, I would say, where's the money? Where's the people? Where's the connection? Where's the, yeah. But at that time, we were just chanting Hare Krishna, and, you know. So we lived for a couple of days with my stepfather's sister, and we had the baby, and then we got a house in Nashville, and we were going to set it up as a temple. And the house looked very nice in the daytime when my mother made the agreement with the landlord. And for those who don't know, that in the early days the devotees slept on the floor, and we took cold showers, and we didn't have much furniture. Those were the days. None. And so I was a new mother, sleeping on the floor with my baby. And we were all in this room together because we hadn't set anything up, but we were trying to, you know, get situated. And we were sleeping about the first night in that house. And all of a sudden, I heard this noise. And my mother opened that door, and it was rats. Not mice. Rats just consuming the whole place. For me, I just became petrified, in a state of shock, couldn't hardly move. I had just had a new baby, and plus I was afraid of mice, what to speak of rats. But my mother said she had a stick, and she, all night long, she chanted Hare Krishna and hit the floor with the stick. This is a real story, and none of the rats came in the room. So the next day, of course, we run to this landlord and said, Mister, are you crazy? You rented us a house infested with rats? And he said, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Nobody has lived there for a long time. It must be that, you know, they're in the fields, blah, blah, blah. And he said, I will do something immediately. So he said that he was going to exterminate the rats. But the rats never came back. Never again, because we just started chanting and everything. It was just such one of those kind of miracle things that it's hard to think about or even explain. Krishna took those rats because he knew we would die, you know. And that was one of the things. And then we didn't have a stove yet, so there was one of those space heaters. Anybody, you all probably will, you don't know. They just warms up your place. And I cooked halva and dal and rice and peas and kofta on a space heater. I couldn't do that today. You know, how did that happen? But Krishna was just giving us, Prabhupada was just giving us so much mercy and encouragement. You know, and so those were the days that, just faith in Prabhupada, just trust it. When you look back, you could just cry tears of joy because, the Lord was letting us know that I am with you every step of the way, no matter what you have to go through. And then one time, the children, my brothers, were in the car, and Nashville is a healing place. Anybody who went to Nashville, hills up and down. And even if you park, you sometimes on the hill. And all of a sudden, they were in the car, and the car started rolling with them in it. And my mother just started saying, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And she ran and stopped that car. Now, how did she do that? Even later, she tried to figure out how she did it. She couldn't think of it. It was just Krishna. Just so many special things that the Lord will do for his devotees when that's all you have. And the danger is sometimes after we are devotee for a while, we may have this material thing, we may have this, we forget that all we really have is Prabhupada and Krishna. Those are assets. That is our wealth. That is our health. That is our healing. That is our intelligence. That is it. And through having that faith in Guru and Krishna, you have everything that you need. So those were a lot of lessons, and I'm sure there's more, but I'm going to stop and just read this because I would like Mother... Okay, that's fine. Okay, I won't read it. Okay.